What's a good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. So we have some early names that are rising and could be potential additions to this New York Jets coaching staff. Now, whether they are replacements or just actual additions to what we already have in place, we'll see. Maybe we don't ultimately end up adding anybody anyways, but the two names that came up are very interesting. And so we'll break those guys down. Prior to that, though, I will just go ahead and put it out there. I'm not advocating one way or the other to add these guys or to completely avoid them. When it comes to coaching hires, right, I think I'm pretty, schooled in identifying the guys that I will want to stay away from. Guys that can excel or, they have a high upside, stuff like that. That's a little bit more nuanced. So not exactly my wheelhouse, but I'll give you guys the information that I was able to dig up and kind of my thoughts surrounding it. And you can let me know for yourselves what you think about having these guys in this New York Jets coaching staff. So let's go ahead and dive into it. The first name's pretty interesting. We have the Chicago Bears current offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. First-time offensive coordinator, by the way. And both of these guys we'll talk about. They have ties to Aaron Rodgers, of course, and both around the time that he's had his MVP, seasons and stuff. So with Luke Getsy, again, as mentioned, first-time coordinator, he's had some great feel-good moments with the team. As of late, of course, and heading into his second year, things haven't gone well whatsoever for him. The Bears owning a top pick obviously says a ton about, how their season has gone for him. But again, there's been some great moments. So you take a look at year one, and you'd have to imagine you feel like you unearthed a gem with Luke Getsy, right? Franchise record for the team in rushing. You're the number one rushing offense in year one. Built his scheme around heavily being able to utilize Justin Fields and his dual threat abilities, right? A lot of what you've seen in terms of those yardage numbers came from Justin Fields, who eclipsed 1,000 yards, and I think he was only the fourth quarterback to do so in NFL history, along with Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, and I feel like McNabb isn't the name I'm looking for, but you guys get the point. So really was able to cater his offense to what Justin Fields was able to do, and they seen a pretty decent amount of success, right? But as mentioned, things haven't gone well in year two. So you're looking at year three of this group of quarterbacks, the Trevor Lawrences, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. That whole quarterback class doesn't really look elite as expected. You still have a lot of question marks around Justin Fields. And so, this would have been a pivotal year for the Chicago Bears because it really would have helped them out. You have a top pick. You can either trade down and continue to have premium assets for years and years, or you can go out and draft your new quarterback of the future, hold on to Justin Fields since we've seen the rash quarterback injuries as a backup, or you could flip him for future premium assets as well, assuming somebody thinks that they can turn him into the quarterback he should be. But things have fallen off the rails, right? And there was definitely a lot of blame to go to Luke Getsy's way. You have DJ Moore, certified wide receiver one. You have Darnell Mooney, who's cracked 1,000 yards before. As your wide receiver two, you have Cole Kmet out there. You obviously have Justin Fields. There's a lot to love about that offense, and so they shouldn't be anywhere near the bottom of the rankings on paper, right? And interestingly enough, I was able to actually find a stat that kind of ranks play callers based on what they have at their disposal, right? They're supposed to take into account injuries and different things of that nature that may inhibit an offense. But not only is Nathaniel Hackett towards the bottom, I think Nathaniel Hackett is directly above Luke Getsy here. Either way, you guys will see the infograph, but it doesn't look great, right? So why would we want to bring in a guy like this? Well, during his Packers regime, and I think there's something to say about when you have back-to-back MVP caliber seasons or even an extended amount of success beyond 1 year, it's worth taking a look at the guys that were able to help craft that, right? It's a year-to-year league for a reason. And so if you can find consistent, sustained success, you obviously either have a great working model or you have a great coaching staff that can continue to identify and turn over talent to help supplement, whatever it is they're looking to do. With Luke Getsy during his time there, during the Packers, you're talking about 2014 to 2017, and then, of course, his run with Rodgers during the MVP seasons. But essentially during his Packers tenure, he's been a part of 5 NFC North Division championships, 6 playoff entrances. His 2020 offense led the league in scoring, NFL record for red zone touchdown percentage, third highest franchise third down percentage in the league, for their franchise. And then the offense that he's crafted has generally consistently been near the top of the league when it comes to not providing a ton of takeaways. And that should be music to our ears, right? We want the takeaways low. If you talk about Robert Saleh and maybe the timid nature, as opposed to being a more aggressive play caller. And this Commanders game that we just won was a big example of that, right? It's worth mentioning that if you're going to be in that time of possession, low scoring, just trying to run up enough points to hopefully shut out the opposing team, it's great to have an offense that's crafted around not producing a ton of turnovers. And then to add to his resume, Luke Getsy actually has a history of developing wide receivers. And interestingly enough, if this storyline pops up this year again, Corey Davis, who retired on us surprisingly so, has a history with Luke Getsy where he coached him at, and I want to say it was Western Michigan, right? So I don't know. Maybe if he comes onto the staff, you can coax a guy like Corey Davis to come back out of retirement if his situation is, not the same or, whatever ended up causing him to retire. So who knows? But you do feel better about having Zach Azzani on the staff, who I thought was an excellent hire from the Denver Broncos as our wide receiver coach, pairing him with a guy like Luke Getsy, who's been able to work with some immense talents. But to the flip side of that coin, we haven't seen these elite passing offenses from the Bears, right? Specifically, so he earned an interesting moniker this year, father of the screen pass, right? It was after their Vikings game, where I think they had maybe the numbers like 80% of their passing plays were a screen of some sort, right? But even on a larger scale level, you take a look at their entire season, and I think through 15 weeks, they're fourth in the NFL when it comes to utilizing screens. And, that covers the whole gambit, tight end, wide receiver, running back screens. Nonetheless, I'm not a big screen guy, but, it's worth mentioning here. So, again, I can't call it if this would be a great addition or not, but this is a guy that comes from a history of success. And if you want to continue to go all in on adding around Aaron Rodgers and what he's seen in a super successful environment before, this could be the route to go. Then probably for the more pressing hire, right? A lot of people are calling for Keith Carter, our offensive line coach / run game coordinator. A lot of people wanted to see him replaced, removed, etc. Because we feel like we're running our offensive line into the ground, right? And there's a history. We've heard players call him out for how intense the practices are. And we've heard Robert Saleh already mention that that's a priority for this team to address, some practice habits there. We've seen success with what they've reshaped for their defensive line training. Hopefully you can get that same kind of turnaround for the offensive line, which has been in shambles now for 2 to 3 years. James Campen is the name that's currently floating around, right? He was an offensive line coach with the Packers, ton of experience, 20 years in the NFL. He's been with the Panthers for the last 2 years. You're also talking about that former player connection. So from a offensive line standpoint, when it comes to trying to identify some of these guys that Joe Douglas may or may not have missed on, whether that be in free agency or the draft, you have another guy that can kind of share similar sentiments with Joe Douglas and maybe help iron out wherever we have been missing at in that particular area, right? So what does James Campen bring to the table? Well, when he got to the Panthers, we did see a significant reduction in sacks his first year, right? They went from 52 sacks all the way down to 36. And then he's run into some troubles as well, right? There's a reason why both of these coaches may be available. Luke Getsy is more so because that offense, when you end up having the number 1 pick again, obviously you're looking at probably clearing house. From the Packers' perspective, one of the things I do love about James Campen is much like our own Brant Boyer, and I've talked about this before, he's been able to be retained by a new head coach and survive who initially hired him. And I think that has a lot to do and a lot to say about the nature of how well they do their job. And so this may be more so a firing if it ultimately occurs, just by nature of a new guy coming in and probably wanting to surround himself around all of his guys. One of the things I did take note of when I was checking him out was that it did seem like he's still widely regarded as a great offensive line coach in the league. So if it isn't us, I assume he will get picked up pretty quick. But he's worked through having to start 10 different linemen way back in the Chargers in 2020. You've seen an offensive line regression for him now with the Panthers. I mean, from what I saw, currently they're projected to give up about 64 sacks. That'll be the fourth most in NFL history, and so that's not a great number. It's not a good resume you want to see a guy coming fresh into your team for, especially replacing a guy that for whatever the player discourse is, he's crafted an elite line with the Titans to allow Derrick Henry to be a beast over there, as well as some other running backs to have success when Derrick Henry has been out. But survived the Matt Rule firing. I love that about him. I love the 20 years experience. I love the former player aspect. Loved what he was able to do his first year with the Panthers as well. But, his accolades and stuff also come with some asterisks and stuff. But for whatever it's worth, he was able to, during his time with the Packers, have 6 different offensive linemen be recognized to the Pro Bowl, which I know is one of those kind of name recognition based things, but when it comes to the offensive line, this isn't something that NFL fans are just universally expertised in, right? A lot of it is heavily going to be based off stats. Who has the lowest sacks? They must be elite. Boom. So it is worth mentioning that he's done a ton of quality work there, and he's had some other all-pros and stuff that he's been able to work with as well. You think about Joel Bitonio when he was with the Browns, and I think he turned Bakhtiari during some of his final years at the Packers into a first-team All-Pro while he was there. And Bakhtiari might be another guy that's coming in, so gives him somebody to kind of work with and build around as well. Storylines everywhere here, right? Outside of that, though, the biggest concern would be, from what I've heard around Panthers fans and guys that I've checked out, preparation may be an issue for the offensive line. We've seen them get beat by a ton of stunts and blitzes, which has wrecked Bryce over there. And it's a similar issue that we're dealing with, right? So you would expect to hire a guy that kind of does generally what you see is when you hire a coach, he's the antithesis to what you previously had, right? If you have a timid guy, you kind of want a more aggressive approach from the new guy, et cetera, et cetera. But working in his favor, again, is the fact that, when you take a look at where his offensive lines were initially projected versus where they ended up at, he had a unit that climbed from 31st in the rankings to being a fringe top 10 offensive line last year, right? That's probably why there's a lot of disappointment heading into year 2 with him and the Panthers and the offensive line. But he's also had to work through his guards being absolutely decimated. Essentially the same thing the New York Jets have had to deal with. And so he's almost had to start a new player, or at least 2 new players almost every week, if not every other week this year. So I don't know. Maybe he gets a mulligan, maybe not. Again, can't advocate one way or the other for these guys, but let me know ultimately what you think. Would you stay away from it, or you going full in, or do you just legitimately think that these guys are solid coaches that can really help out this offense? I'll catch you guys again. Peace.